Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We are back with another episode of Daily Palantir, and on today's show, we're going to be discussing two things. Number one, Palantir, after going up 25% over the past month, got its first downgrade. We're going to talk about that downgrade, analyze why that happened, and reflect, given the market's about to close today, how the stock reacted to that downgrade. And then number two, a new client is using Palantir that was rumored to be using Palantir. Today, they officially confirmed that they're using Palantir, so we got a lot to get into. Let's get into it. All right, so let's get started with the downgrade that we got today, and then we'll go from there. So Mizuho downgraded Palantir from a neutral to underperform. They did increase their price target from $21 to $22, but they issued an underperform on Palantir. As soon as this news came out, the stock went down 2% in the pre-market. So here's what the analyst said. Two paragraphs. One is qualitative, one is more quantitative. First, while Palantir has performed generally well in recent quarters, we remain concerned by the lack of visibility into its business. Some of the beats have been lower quality, and we have limited confidence in the company's ability to deliver consistently strong results. So that's more of the sort of subjective, qualitative analysis around how they feel about the company. Now, quantitatively, primarily following the significant 67% rise in shares year to date, it is increasingly difficult to justify Palantir's high multiple that, in our view, likely already discounts significant acceleration versus our consensus expectations for 20 to 21% revenue growth. So let's break down both elements of this downgrade. First, the paragraph that they talk about the qualitative analysis around we don't believe in the company's ability to deliver results, we have limited confidence, some of their beats have been lower quality, and things of that nature. That to me is okay. I mean, it's a reason that a lot of firms will give around any stock that they don't feel that much confidence in. From my perspective, I look at some of the other analysts that also look at Palantir, particularly Bank of America, which, by the way, put out a $28 price target, or they reaffirmed that $28 price target 2 weeks ago on June 28th, and they gave a very big in-depth basically analysis for why they believe that Palantir is worth 28 and probably can head to 30. And I'll put that link in the description for those that want to check that out. But that analysis that Mariana for Bank of America does on Palantir that is also qualitative and really analyzes the business and the company itself, that to me is where I get a lot of my research from a qualitative perspective. So from that argument, you know, Mizuho saying that we just don't trust management and we don't think they're going to beat, that's fine. It's a subjective argument around how you think about Palantir, and someone's going to be right, someone's going to be wrong. But that's their perspective. Now, the quantitative part around Palantir and the argument around where it's trading, how it's rose year to date, and the growth that is baked into the assumptions of their models for this 2024 and also for 2025 through 2026, that is where I give them some credence. And if they want to say it's overvalued from that perspective, then sure. They can make that argument. I think making a quantitative argument around Palantir being overvalued or being too expensive or running up too quickly without having enough catalysts and really showing the growth, I think that's fair, and I think they're able to make that argument. My question today, and I wrote this on Twitter in the morning when we saw that this was the downgrade that we got this morning, was primarily a question of how is Palantir going to perform? So I thought this was a really interesting day because after a month of going up 20%, Palantir got its first real downgrade. And I thought this was bound to happen, by the way, so it's not really that surprising. Some analysts can't get behind the valuation. Again, Mariana from Bank of America, she thinks of it as a defense contractor and a software company. People from Mizuho, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, they might think of it only as a software company. And if you ignore the defense part of the business, then yes, you're going to think it's a bit overvalued. So some analysts will always end up downgrading a stock purely based on valuation. They just can't get behind the numbers, and they can have whatever argument they want to make for why the company may be overvalued. And obviously, Palantir has run very quickly, and there hasn't really been an increase in growth. We're going to see what happens on earnings. So I can get behind the argument that you may think it's a bit overvalued. However, now we're going to get to see how people react when it dips. Institutions that wanted more exposure before earnings or wanted to initiate a position, do they take advantage of a day where Palantir dips 5, 6, 7, maybe 8%? Given how we perform today, I think we'll get some insight on where the base is forming, what levels are hard for the stock to go to, where support ends up being, and where buyers feel comfortable getting ready to take advantage of the dip, which all gives us a better understanding of if the stock actually is undervalued or overvalued. Outside of the quantitative analysis where you can say it's undervalued or overvalued, if people are willing to pay a certain level and they are sustaining the ability to pay a certain level, it might not just be retail, it might not just be institutional, it might be the entire market coming together and say, we believe this stock is worth this much. So for example, Mizuho thinks Palantir is worth $22. I think it is going to be very hard for us to get below 20. Could we get back to 22? Sure. If we have a crappy earnings, the market takes a little bit of a hit, I absolutely believe it could get back that low. Below 20 is going to be really hard. Just like saying, could Palantir get back to $10? It's going to be a little hard. So from that perspective, it's like, all right, even though you can issue a price target and you may think anything above or below that is undervalued or overvalued, what really matters at the end of the day is what are people willing to pay? Because whatever people are willing to pay is kind of the true consensus around how you think a stock should trade or not trade. And that doesn't mean everyone's right if they agree on that consensus, but that just means if a stock decides to sit in a certain spot for a long time, the market has come to the conclusion that that is what the stock is worth. Now, if we look at Palantir's price action today, Palantir, we got the market closed in about 30 minutes. Looks like it's going to end above 28.50 on the day, which is absolutely incredible. So here's how the day basically started. We opened on a red candle to 27.47. As you can see, there was the red candle right there. We were at 28.15 in the pre-markets, give or take. We fell from about 28.80, so down about 2%, fell to 27.47. That was the dip. The dip was not 23, 24, 25. The dip, there was a lot of people ready to buy in that 27.47 range, and then it just worked its way up and up and up, got to 28.70 or 28.82 at one point, which means we were green on one of the biggest downgrades we've gotten after a 25% gain in the past month. And then we fell a little bit, and now we're here at 28.64. It looks like we're going to be closing above 28.50. This is really important. And the reason it's really important is because until we get earnings, and on earnings, we're going to figure out, how the company is growing, where their guidance is, how the models and estimates change, if growth accelerates in the government, etc. Until we get all those numbers, which, by the way, earnings came out August 5th. It didn't come out, but the disclosure is that it'll be August 5th. I'll be live on the channel, and we'll see what Palantir says for Q2. Until we get those numbers, the stock is trading above 28, gets to the 27s, gets eaten up. 27.5, 27.4 is the low range. Last week, we were hovering in the 27.20s. Then we got into the 28s, and now we're pushing 29 as we did yesterday, and we might be closing above 28.5. Palantir, for the majority of July, has been in this 26 to 28 range, and over the past week and a half, we've really been above 27. The more we close above 28, above 28.5, above 27.5, which is really that core level to me, the better chance I think we have of consolidating in this range, justifying the multiple that obviously has been, Palantir has obviously been given a premium for the market. I've been calling it on this show the cool premium. When you're a cool company, exceptional leadership, amazing product innovation, etc., even if you don't have the growth to justify it, which is what people would argue is the reason for why it's conventionally overvalued. If you're cool, you're going to get some love from the market. This happens to Tesla. This happens to Amazon. Not saying Palantir is Tesla or Amazon, but the point is, if you're a cool company, you're going to get a premium. So Palantir has obviously benefited from the cool premium this year, and they've executed ruthlessly. The one thing that has not been there is growth. So even if Q2 does not deliver an increase in guidance that is massive or a big beat on earnings, then the question is going to be, all right, so Q2 numbers come out. Let's say they're not the best. Where does Palantir go? Where's the bottom? 22, 23, 21? Is Mizuho right? Is it worth $22? Is Citibank right? Is it worth $25? Is Mariana right? Which is that even if Palantir doesn't grow that dramatically, it's still probably worth about $28. And so we stay at 28. Or if Palantir beats and raises, do we go to 35, 32, 31? Do we maintain 28? Because we at least get to justify the current multiple, even if we don't expand further. I think today's price action is really important, because the fact that we didn't drop dramatically on a pretty major downgrade means that the market's willing to pay more than what a lot of these analysts think the company's worth. And this is what I don't know the answer to, either that's institutional or that's retail. I'm kind of thinking today, the fact that the dip was bought at 27.47 feels a bit more institutional. Again, I could be wrong. We talked about the Dan Ives note yesterday that came out for another reason why I think it's more institutional. But if it is institutional, as long as we get some decent numbers, the institutions, I think, are going to buy, or they're going to at least maintain their positions. If we get some crappy numbers, they're going to dump their shares. They're not going to care. But if we get some decent numbers, maybe the institutions continue to pile on, and maybe this 27, 28 range becomes the base for Palantir. I think it's going to take another month, preferably 2 months, to really determine if this is a range. I'm uncomfortable saying it's definitely past the low 20s. But if we stay until September, October in this range, if not higher, then maybe the low 20s are gone for Palantir. And that's because of all the things we've been talking about on the channel, but also the perception of AI monetization and companies, institutions, retail wanting to get exposure to software applications of AI, which might end up being Palantir. All right, last thing we'll look at today, shout out to John. I will put their Twitter in the description. They found a video of GE Aerospace VP David Tweedy, confirming they are leveraging Palantir's technology to improve engine maintenance for USAF jets. So this is really exciting. We knew they were working with Palantir to an extent. We did not know this specifically they were working with Palantir on, but it seems like that's happening. So here's a 2-minute clip of him talking about how they're using Palantir, and then we'll go from there.
Innovative people in the medical space are using AI coupled with radiologists to improve the accuracy of cancer screenings and other things. Well, we're doing that same thing for assessing the health of jet engines. When we go in borescope, we have great maintainers. You couple that and supplement that with AI, we can do a more accurate job of assessing the health of an engine. And we're proud to announce that we're doing a pilot program with Palantir to use AI to do better fleet management, predictive maintenance, to really help with the logistics and predictability of.
That's what's so interesting about this. Like, there's so much of this AI. It's like, oh, it's a robot that'll fly in space. No, there's like very basic applications that are changing the way we can run the military now.
Here today.
Yeah. Yep. Let's wrap up with the final thing. There's something really interesting General Milley said about these new technologies. They're available to us, our allies, and our adversaries. He said the United States military is leading now. How do they keep that lead?
Yeah, it's a team sport. It's industry, it's DoD, it's Congress coming together to deliver these capabilities. And history has shown when in a conflict with technology and capability overmatch, it can be decisive. And I think today's in Ukraine is the counterfactual to that, is when you don't have that overmatch, what ends up happening. So as an aerospace company, we think every day about things like air superiority and what we can do. For generations, the United States has benefited from air superiority. So we come in every day thinking about how can we not just collectively as that team understand the threat, understand the technologies and the capabilities, harness those into actual products and capabilities, and then get them across the goal line into the hands of the warfighter.
I mean, it's very apropos. We're 2 blocks, I think, from the NATO summit right now, and like that's what the topic of conversation is.
Absolutely.
Right? David, this was an awesome conversation. Thanks for being here. Thanks for.
So interesting stuff. Couple quotes there that are very important. Innovative people in the medical space are using AI coupled with radiologists to improve the accuracy of cancer screenings. We're doing the same thing for assessing the health of jet engines. As you can see right here, the use cases of AI are industry agnostic, and they can be used whether it's in cancer screenings or for assessing the health of your jet engines. Just going to show if Palantir can become a de facto platform for a lot of these companies with AI. There's thousands of use cases, and that's what Dan Ives talked about yesterday as well. And then he said, we're proud to announce that we're doing a pilot program with Palantir to use AI to do better fleet management, predictive maintenance, to really help with the logistics and predictability of our operational fleet. So this is GE Aerospace saying, hey, we are doing a pilot program with Palantir, and we are proud to be working with them to be able to figure out how can we do the maintenance that is required to make sure our jets are secure. Now, Palantir also has a contract with another company that controls what happens in the sky, which is Airbus. So it's very interesting because I don't think Palantir gets this GE Aerospace. I don't want to say it's officially a contract yet, but it's this pilot program that they're working, which inevitably, hopefully, turns into a contract. They don't get this contract if they don't have the Airbus experience. And so that Airbus experience, again, it just goes to show the network effects of building not just software for Airbus, but Skywise building an entire ecosystem, an entire operating system, a platform for Airbus and all their other vendors and subcontractors and other airlines that participate in it. Probably gave them a lot of research and development on how to do this for a company like GE Aerospace. Or, that's one way that played out. Another way could have been like GE Aerospace saw what they did with Skywise and they said, hey, can we come to a boot camp? So it's very likely that Skywise created the foundational elements for Palantir to be able to even offer these products to other companies that operate in the sky. And they might have invited those companies to a boot camp and said, hey, why don't you come learn what it is, what it looks like in real time. If it looks good after 5 hours, get a 5-month pilot. And then after a 5-month pilot, maybe we get a 5-year contract. And that, to me, that go-to-market, I think, is what Wall Street really cares about. AI as a tailwind is getting all these companies exciting. It's kind of doing the marketing for Palantir because all these companies know they need to have AI in whatever they're doing, whether it's predictive maintenance or whether it's in the healthcare system. And then the question becomes, can Palantir just sell them the product after they get to use the product? And if the boot camps continue to excel, then Palantir is probably going to be able to get a lot more clients in that same way. All right, that's it for me. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. DailyPalantir.substack.com. If you're not subscribed, free email newsletter every single day. Let me know your thoughts on Palantir's price action today, given we got the downgrade. Also, what did you think about the downgrade itself? And I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, everyone.